Hello, my name is Dahlin, and this is my non-Western music presentation over Ali Akbar Khan. A little background on Ali Akbar Khan. He was born in Bangladesh in April of 1922. He was born into a famous musical family, and his father, Aladdin Khan, is considered one of the greatest musical artists in North Indian music. And his family tree traces further back than just his father. It traces back to Mayan Tansen, a musician in the 16th century, and the court musician of a Mughal emperor named Akbar. And because of this pressure to learn music, he started learning it from his father and his uncle at the young age of 3. And as he grew older, he started to learn to play the sarod, and that was his instrument of choice throughout his career. And he learned very quickly and picked up the sarod very, very quickly. So he gave his first public performance at only 14 years old, and in his mid-20s was given the title of Ustad, and this was Persian for master musician. So even from this young age, he was seen as one of the better musicians in the nation and just given a lot of respect for the musical genius that he was. And then continuing his background, he was the first Indian musician to play on television in America, and also was the first Indian musician to have an American recording of their music. And this was significant because a lot of the ragas and his style of music were not played in the United States. So he was bringing a lot more awareness to the music that was known in his culture and just bringing awareness to ragas in general. In the 1960s, he settled down with his wife Mary J. Khan and his son Alam in California, and that's where he founded his Ali Akbar College of Music in 1967, and more than 7,000 students have pursued Indian music at this institution. And during that time, that's when he was becoming more and more popular as he was doing shows throughout the United States and just showing his skills on television around that same time. And in 1985, he founded a second branch of his college in Basel, Switzerland. And this one is still run to this day by one of his mentees. And in 1997, he was also awarded the National Endowment for the Arts, which is the United States' highest honor in traditional arts. So at this time, he had been well known all throughout the world and very well known in the United States for his music. And he had played for over 80 years when he passed away in 2009 at the age of 87. So for 84 years, he had been playing these ragas, and that was what he continued to play all the way throughout his life. And so the style of Ali Akbar Khan was the traditional Indian style of a raga. So a raga is a melodic framework that focuses on the style of ascending and descending musical scales. And a lot of it is improvisation, so he'd learn the basic rhythm of it, but then he would play his own chords. And typically the ragas were accompanied by a drum, either of a tampura or a tabla, and those would keep the basic rhythm of the song and would create the harmony with the sarod. So he played the sarod, and that's a musical instrument with 25 strings, and you pluck 10 of the strings, and the other 15 vibrate with those primary strings being played. It's got two chambers that produce contrasting sounds, so it creates a very full sound to it. And also, there's so much you can do with it because there are so many strings. You're not limited to only a few chords. And he learned how to play over 75,000 ragas from his father. So this is our first listening, and it's the Alap and Misra Coffee. Okay, so in this piece, Ali Akbar plays a sarod, and his companion in the video plays a tanpura. So the rhythm for the piece is unstructured, as most ragas are, with only a simple rhythmic background with the tanpura. So the person playing the tanpura was playing a consistent beat, keeping the rhythm, but Ali Akbar was playing a sarod and playing his own chords and some improvisation of sorts with it. And the melody is repeated often, but on an ascending scale. And halfway through the piece, the tempo begins to pick up more rapidly. So in the first half, I wasn't able to play the whole video, but the first half of the video, it was a pretty slow build up. But the second half, very quick build up, tempo picks up very quick. And the harmony for the song is created by the continuous playing of the sarod paired with the tanpura. And the texture is a monophonic with drone. And a quote I found about songs similar to this is classical Indian music creates harmony through the tanpura, playing a combination of the tonic and the fifth or the fourth in a fixed pattern in the background. So that plays into the rhythm and the harmony. And the form for the listening was improvisational, and this piece really stood out to me because it's significant for his career in the US, and it was at the University of Washington, which is a big and prestigious college. And structurally, I really enjoyed listening to the slow build-up of the tempo of the piece, and just that build-up at the end was just very epic feeling, and it just gave you a sense of, like, you need to pay attention to this because of the slow build-up, and it just grabbed your attention. So our next piece is the song Lullaby off his album Journey. For this piece, the instrumentation was also his famous sarod, and some drums were playing in the background, and I would assume it was a tabla because that is a classical Indian drum. And the rhythm and melody were much more peaceful than the last song and have a slower tempo. So just create a much more calming piece than the last one. And like the last piece, the structure and form are likely unstructured because Ali Akbar Khan improvises his chords. And the texture is also a monophonic with a drone. And the listening was a little different because it did not involve an increasing or decreasing scale throughout the whole song. So there was moments where the scale went up and down, but for the most part it stayed pretty central, which created the calm feeling. And in my opinion, this piece just gives the listener a calm feeling. I personally really enjoyed this one a lot, as it just made me feel much more relaxed. So, moving on to contribution to the abundance of life through Ali Akbar Khan's music, the first thing I noticed is it can give you a sense of peace with God. So Ali Akbar Khan's music has a calming style and can help us calm our minds. And this can help us better engage with God. So when we let go of some of our stress and just take a second to breathe, and music that is calm like this can help us just take that moment and go, and just let those worries just wash away through the deep breath. And that relates to the second one, which is stress relief, because through the calming and peaceful style, not only can it help us connect with God, but it can also help us slow down and take time for ourselves. So while it is really important to take that time when we're uh, at ease and relaxed to spend with God, we also need to take that time for ourselves sometimes and just allow ourselves to just refresh, because a lot of us get burnt out. There's a lot of burnout in especially my generation, and through taking time for ourselves and slowing down, we can just hopefully change that statistic and cause less burnout. And the last thing is learning. So this was a new style of music for me. I'd never heard a raga before, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And the type of learning of listening to other people's music and different cultures just helps give a much more well-rounded education. And some personal takeaways from this music class. The first one would be learning about the culture. So I really love that I can learn about different cultures and their lifestyles just through music. It is very cool to me that we can listen to music from different groups, different time frames, and different people groups, and just hear the difference. And I think it just builds a lot of culture, and I really appreciate that and really enjoyed listening to it and learning more about that. And the second would be just an appreciation for music and for musical talent specifically. Because I've never been good at playing music. I'd only really played the piano growing up. I tried to play guitar for 1 year, but it just never went very well. It wasn't something I was very talented in. So it's very cool listening to these very talented musicians, these very talented composers as well, and just appreciating what they've done and what they continue to do. And the last thing would be terminology. So through this class, I've gained much more knowledge about the proper terms for music. I never really understood much music terminology before this class, and through it, I started to gain a better foundation of how to talk about music and how to be much more educated on the styles. And thank you for listening to my presentation, and here are my references.